Hi everyone, Christine here at Christine's Craft Table. Today I have some special projects to share with you. It's always fun when someone in your family makes a special request of something they would like you to make for them. And that's the case with today's projects. So the three patterns were new to me, so I thought I'd give you a little review of the patterns and the yarn I used. First in line, we have Sweetie the Pig. Sweetie the Pig is from Sweet Oddity Arts, and that's the name of her pattern, Sweetie the Pig crochet pattern. First, I'll talk about the yarn. This was 155 yards of Hobby Lobby I Love This yarn in the color Soft Pink. That's her main color. The accent color is Loops and Threads Soft Classic in pink for the tips of her toes and her little nose. Hobby Lobby is a great yarn that is always a go-to yarn for me. I love this yarn. It's soft, it's economical, easy care, it's machine washable and dryable, and looks real nice, crocheted up. The Loops and Threads Soft Classic is also becoming a go-to yarn for me. It's also a value yarn and easy to work with, easy care, key factors, and it comes in some very pretty colors. And that's Michael's brand, Loops and Threads. So here it did provide a nice contrast to the light pink. I also used a tiny bit of Crafter's Secret Big Idea in the color Peppercorn for her eyes. The pattern called for snap-on eyes, but I like to sew them on, so that is yarn. It also called for a strand of white underneath the eyes, so that's the light part that you see. It's just a single strand. And those are the yarns I used. They all get a 10 out of 10 from me because, like I said, they're my go-to yarns and I use them regularly. For Sweetie here, I used a 3mm generic ergonomic hook. The pattern called for a 3.25, but with Amigurumi, I always go with the smallest hook possible so that I can get the stitches nice and tight, so you don't see the polyfill through the stitches. And I think I got a nice, decent, tight stitch on this. If you get the pattern, she has some real good pictures on the pattern, but I noticed her pattern of the back portion, these stitches are really stretched out and you can totally see the polyfill in between the stitches. So I made sure that was one of the reasons I went with the smaller hook. And the pattern again is called Sweetie the Pig, and I have provided a link for you in the description box below the video. Now, I think it's well written, and like I said, it has some great pictures for assembly and how she should look. So that was really helpful. The crochet work is easy. It's all single crochet stitches. And it's basically you're making a big ball and then sticking some tiny little pieces to it. And yeah, I think the nose is probably the most challenging part and not really that challenging, but in the whole swing of things, the tail was super easy. She gives great direction on placement, so you don't struggle with where to place the components. And I think she came out very nice and symmetrical. She stands on her legs. I love the curly tail. I think her facial expression is very simpatico. The pattern also gave a tip on how to squeeze the eyes in a little bit to give her head some contour. You're basically just taking one strand and taking it through her eyes and giving a little tug to draw in that portion. So I would give this pattern definitely a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed making it. And, well, she's a darling. Okay, that was the first item. The second is Squish the Cat. I just love that name. Isn't he adorable? I used 183 yards of Bernat Softy Chunky in the color white, and it's a number 6 weight. The pattern calls for a Bernat blanket yarn. I'm not a fan of blanket yarn, and I've been trying to reduce my stash, so I went with the Softy Chunky, which I had plenty of, and you'll see that there, not the blanket yarn. It's an okay chunky yarn as far as chunky yarns go. I have no complaints about it. I would buy it again at the right price. I really have nothing negative to say about Bernat chunky yarn. The pattern called for an 8mm hook with the Bernat blanket yarn, but because I used a regular yarn, I wanted to make sure again that I had the stitches as tight as I could get them. So I went down to a 6mm hook. I used my Clover Soft Touch for it. And I think I got a pretty close stitch where you can't see the polyfill. This is pretty much all half double crochet. A couple times in some tight places, the 6mm hook was a challenge to work with, like sewing in, some of the small pieces, but it was doable totally and worth it to get the tighter stitches. Now this pattern surprised me because I chose it because the picture of the cat was really cute. But when I started working on the main piece, I was a little nervous. I thought I had made a mistake because it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it looked like I was making a frisbee. And then you finish it and you have this giant gaping hole and it tells you to tie off. So it looks like you have a bowl on your hands for a very long time. After doing that main piece, you do the little pieces, but then you just put the face on and the ears and the tail, and it still looks pretty odd because it is so wide. But once you get this belly portion on, which again does not look like a belly, it's just a round circle, and then you attach the feet to the belly, which is, I think, very ingenious. For one thing, it saves you all the trouble of figuring out where to put each foot. That's one of the challenges of amigurumi, is getting your placement right. And because you sew them on with the belly, and the belly is the same circumference as the bowl, you're just counting stitches to make sure they're equidistant from each other. So it's very easy to put the feet on. And once you get the belly on and you stand him up, then you see how adorable he is, and he looks just right. And when he stands on the table, he's got about a 1/4 inch clearance with his feet, but his feet really do hold him because of the way that you sew them on. They're very stiff, and they stick up that little bit to give him some clearance from the tabletop, to where he just looks adorable. He takes on this immediate personality of don't mess with me, and also kind of ready to pounce and play at the same time. So when he comes together, when you sew all the pieces on, you will not be disappointed. And the face, of course, is adorable. So the pattern is great too. I don't think I mentioned who made it. The pattern is by Tamara Kelly at Moogly, and there's a YouTube tutorial. And the pattern is also free on her website, with ads throughout it, how they do that. But totally a surprise as far as how it works together and just how cute it comes out. If you are motivated to make him, don't worry if you start getting nervous when you're making that first piece. Do not adjust the stitch counts. This designer knew exactly what she was doing when she created this, and he's perfect just as he is. So I, again, give this pattern a 10 out of 10 for sure, and highly recommend it. They also sell, or she used this ball to stuff it with. It's like a therapy ball of some sort. They sell it on Amazon. She has a link to it in the pattern, and it totally fills the space. But they wanted like $16 or $18 for the ball, and so I said, yeah, polyfill is just fine, and it is. He's great. So I imagine with that ball he would be a lot heavier. Might be interesting to try sometime, but for my purposes, the polyfill worked great. And that is Squish the Cat. Lastly, and what I just finished last night, is my banana family of 4. I think I used a total of 155 yards of Caron's Simply Soft for these guys. I wasn't quite sure because I was using, there they are, oops, oh no, hold on. I was using the Caron's Simply Soft for another project, and I forgot to note how much I had before I started. Okay, there they are. A banana family of 4. This was fun and challenging in many different respects. First of all, the yarn was an adventure. Most of this is Caron's Simply Soft, and the color Super Duper Yellow. I love the color, and that is why I used it. However, Caron's Simply Soft is not the yarn to use for amigurumi. You know how I mentioned earlier that you want to get your hook as small as possible so that you don't get a lot of gaps in your stitches. Well, Caron's Simply Soft, for anybody who's used it before, is very splitty, and it does better with a larger hook. So the yarn is fighting you the whole time if you were going to go with that small hook, which is what I tried to do in the beginning. The yarn just about drove me mad, and I almost quit. But I kept thinking about that cute little face of the little girl who was waiting for her family of 4 bananas, and so I kept on going. I persevered. This was my first banana with the 2.75 millimeter hook, and you'll see that the stitches are pretty close together. But again, the splitting was off the charts. Caron's Simply Soft is made of 4 strands, and one of them would invariably try to go in the opposite direction of where I wanted it to go. Or sometimes part of a strand would do that. Almost in every stitch. So yeah, this is not fun. But we completed him, we persevered, and he is, or this actually turned out to be the mama, because on my next round, I went up a hook size to the 3 millimeter prim hook. And that produced the papa because he came out about 1 inch bigger than the mother. So he is the papa because of the larger hook. However, you will see a little more gaping in the stitches because of going to the 3 millimeter. And I guess I wasn't paying enough attention to try and get my stitch tension tight enough to avoid those holes, because I was just enjoying the fact that I could actually crochet without splitting yarns. So this was my second attempt. After my second attempt and seeing that I had a little more gaping, I had to do the 2 children. I went back to a 3 millimeter, but I tried a different 3 millimeter, an ergonomic generic hook that was metal. And I really concentrated on getting my stitches as tight as possible. And it did a little bit better. There's still more gaping than with the 2.75, but I was not going back to the 2.75 for anything. And all that to say, Caron's Simply Soft is not the yarn for amigurumi. So I got brother and sister here with that one. And the other yarns I used were Bernat Super Value in the color Peony and Walnut. This green is Karen Simply Soft in Sage. And then the black is my Crafter's Secret Big Idea in Peppercorn. So we produced the family. And I can't say anything good about the yarn for Amigurumi, although I love Karen Simply Soft for blankets and other items, just not stuffed animals ever again. The other yarns were fine, and even though we had these really small areas to crochet with them, they did fine with the smaller hook. So there you go. The pattern on this, I also had a little trouble finding the right pattern. The first pattern I tried, and it's not that there's any lack of patterns on YouTube for bananas, but most of them are peeled bananas. And I just couldn't see sending my niece a family of 4 half-dressed bananas because it was a family. So I had to find one with the fully clothed banana. And this was my first attempt. And does she not look more like baby corn? And this was an exercise in pain for my fingers, because what I did was I used 3 strands of Karen Simply Soft together. Got a nice, real tight stitch there, that's for sure. But it was a nightmare because it was so difficult to crochet with the small hook and 3 strands of that yarn. So after this experience, I went back to search the patterns again, and I did come up with one that looked perfect. However, it was in Spanish. I learned Spanish. I took 4 years of high school Spanish, and my family speaks Spanish, some of them, but my Spanish is not so great, and I don't get to practice it very often, and so it is gradually diminishing. I understood maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of what she was saying, and there were a couple of terms that she kept using that I have no idea what they meant. I wouldn't even know how to spell them, but she used them often enough, and her video was a great quality, so I was able to follow along, and we produced our bananas with that pattern. The video name is Bananas Hechas a Crochet, and the channel is Cositas Candy. And I will leave a link for that in the description box as well, if you'd like to take a look at it. It really is a well done video so that you can actually figure out what she's doing. The majority of it is double crochet and half double crochet with some single crochet on the ends and a few post stitches. So it's followable, if that's a word. And I'm very thankful for it because it's the only way I found the right banana. And this one I like because it also has those long stripe type things that a banana has on it. And it also has, if you didn't notice, a gentle curve to it as well because of the stitch pattern that she uses. And it was easily adaptable so that I could make a smaller version as well for the kids. So all in all, very happy with my family of 4 bananas, and I will give Bananas Hechas en Crochet a 10 out of 10 rating as well. And I will never again use Karen Simply Soft for Amigurumi. Hope you enjoyed my projects, and I will see you next time. Thanks.